In 1 Chronicles chapter 15, King David prepares once again to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. After the tragic events involving Uzzah in the previous attempt, David now understands that God's presence must be approached according to God's instructions. This chapter becomes a story of preparation, obedience, worship, and joyful celebration. The chapter begins with David making extensive preparations in the city of David. He builds houses for himself and prepares a special place for the Ark of God, including a tent that will serve as its temporary resting place. David then makes an important declaration. David recognizes that the Ark of God must not be carried on a cart, as it was in the past. Instead, he reminds the people that God had chosen the Levites to carry the Ark and minister before him forever. David gathers the priests and Levites from the families of Kohath, Merari, Gershon, Elizaphan, Hebron, and Uzziel. Leaders such as Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab assemble with their fellow Levites. David instructs them to consecrate themselves before the Lord. He explains that the first attempt failed because they had not sought God according to the proper order. The tragedy involving Uzzah had taught them that God's commands could not be ignored. The priests and Levites obey. They consecrate themselves and prepare to bring the Ark to Jerusalem. This time the Levites carry the Ark on their shoulders using poles, exactly as Moses had commanded, according to the word of the Lord. David also organizes a large group of musicians to lead the celebration. Levites are appointed to play harps, lyres, cymbals, trumpets, and other instruments. Among the musicians are Heman, Asaph, and Ethan, who lead the worship with loud cymbals. Other Levites are assigned to play stringed instruments and harps, while priests sound trumpets before the Ark. One Levite named Chenaniah is placed in charge of directing the music because of his skill and understanding. The chapter highlights how seriously David takes both worship and obedience. As the procession begins, God helps the Levites who are carrying the Ark. In gratitude, sacrifices of bulls and rams are offered before the Lord. David himself participates fully in the celebration. He wears a robe of fine linen, along with the Levites, singers, and priests. As the Ark moves toward Jerusalem, David dances and rejoices with all his strength before God. The atmosphere is filled with worship. Trumpets sound, cymbals clash, and instruments play as the people celebrate the arrival of the Ark. What had once ended in tragedy is now becoming a moment of blessing because God's instructions are being followed. However, not everyone shares the joy. As the Ark enters Jerusalem, Michal, the daughter of Saul and David's wife, watches from a window. Seeing David dancing and celebrating before the Lord, she despises him in her heart. The chapter closes with the Ark successfully brought into Jerusalem and placed in the tent David had prepared for it. The presence of God is now established at the center of the nation's capital in Jerusalem. The key message of this chapter is that true worship combines joy with obedience. David's first attempt failed because God's instructions were ignored. His second attempt succeeds because worship is guided by reverence, humility, and submission to God's word. Next comes 1 Chronicles chapter 16.